Episode 16, The Unseen Enemy. The cold stone walls of the underground chamber closed in on Eli and Evelyn as they stood face to face with the silent circle. The trapdoor above them had been sealed shut, and the only way out now was through the circle itself. Their hands instinctively reached for the weapons they had brought with them, small knives and flashlights, but there was an eerie sense of inevitability in the air, as though whatever happened next was already written in the dark history of Black Hollow. The circle's leader stepped forward, his eyes glowing with a strange, unnatural light. His cloak rustled as he moved, and the air seemed to thicken with every step he took. Behind him, the other members of the circle stood in a perfect line, their faces obscured by hoods. They were silent, but their presence was almost suffocating. "You found what you were looking for," the leader said, his voice smooth and cold. "But now, it's too late." Eli's grip tightened on the handle of his knife, but he knew they couldn't fight them all. The circle was more powerful than they could have ever imagined, and they had only one chance to stop them before they unlocked the heart of the hollow and released whatever ancient horror lay imprisoned within. "We won't let you do this," Evelyn said, her voice steady, despite the fear coursing through her veins. "Whatever's locked in that heart, it doesn't belong to you. And it doesn't belong to anyone." The circle's leader chuckled softly, a sound that sent a chill down their spines. "You misunderstand. The heart was never meant to be a prison. It was always meant to be a weapon. And soon, it will be ours to command." Eli exchanged a glance with Evelyn. They had to act quickly, they couldn't let the circle complete their ritual. The book they had found in the church described an ancient seal, one that could bind the heart forever if performed at the right moment. But they needed time to decipher it, and the circle would not give them that luxury. Before they could make a move, the circle's leader raised his hand, and the air grew even colder, a crackling energy filling the space. "You've made a mistake by coming here," he said. "You have no idea what you're truly dealing with. The heart isn't just a source of power, it's a doorway. And what lies on the other side is something far older, far more dangerous than you could ever imagine." Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble, faint at first, like the distant rumble of thunder. But as the leader spoke, the tremor grew stronger, and the walls seemed to pulse with an ominous energy. The other members of the circle stepped forward, raising a hand and muttering words in a language neither Eli nor Evelyn recognized. The air crackled in the air, and the altar at the center of the chamber began to glow with an eerie light, its symbols shimmering as if alive. The heart was awakening. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest as she looked at the leader. "Stop. You don't know what you're doing. You'll unleash something that can't be controlled." The leader's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something other than cold indifference, a brief flash of desperation? Perhaps fear. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. "We already have," he said, his voice now filled with an unsettling calm. "The heart will lead us to the power we were always meant to wield. You're too late to stop it." Eli's mind raced. He had to find a way to disrupt their ritual. He glanced at Evelyn, who nodded subtly. She was thinking the same thing. They needed to find a way to break the circle's concentration, to keep them from finishing the ritual. Without warning, Eli lunged forward, aiming for the circle's leader. He raised his knife, but before he could reach him, the leader waved his hand, and an invisible force slammed into Eli's chest, throwing him back into the stone wall with a sickening crash. The air was knocked out of him, and his vision blurred for a moment as the world spun around him. Evelyn rushed to his side, her hand gripping his arm as she helped him to his feet. She glanced up at the circle, and her eyes narrowed. "We need to break their focus. We need to stop the ritual." "Distract them," Eli gasped, clutching his side where the force had struck him. "I'll take care of the rest." Evelyn nodded and stood, her eyes locked on the altar. She could see the faint outline of the heart, glowing with an unnatural light, its power slowly pulsing like a heartbeat. She had no idea what would happen if they allowed the ritual to continue, but she knew they couldn't afford to find out. She turned to face the circle, her voice ringing out with authority. "You've made a grave mistake," she shouted. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." The circle's members paused for a moment, their eyes flickering with a strange intensity. but the leader didn't waver. "You should have stayed away," he said, and with a single motion, he raised his hand once more. A blast of energy shot toward Evelyn, but this time, she was ready. With a quick move, she dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack. The blast slammed into the stone wall behind her, sending cracked spiderwebbing across the surface. Eli, recovering from his injuries, saw his opportunity. The circle was distracted for the moment. He rushed toward the altar, his mind focused on the task at hand. He had seen the symbols on the heart in the book they had found, and now, he had to use them to break the ritual before it was too late. As Eli approached the altar, the pulsing light from the heart intensified, filling the room with a blinding glow. The symbols carved into the stone seemed to shift and change, as though they were alive. The air around him crackled with ancient, malevolent energy, and for a moment, he could feel the oppressive weight of whatever was sealed within. He forced himself to focus, remembering the passage in the book. He could feel the power of the heart pressing against his mind, but he pushed through, reaching out to touch the cold stone surface. The moment his fingers made contact, a violent surge of energy shot through him, sending him to his knees. His head spun, and he felt as though his very soul was being pulled into the heart itself. For a moment, he thought he might lose himself to whatever was trapped within. But then, something snapped in his mind. The symbols on the heart began to shift and change again, and the energy swirling around him seemed to lose its grip. He had broken through the seal. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently, and a deafening sound filled the chamber, a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from deep beneath the earth. It was followed by a series of shrill, high-pitched screams, as though the very walls of the chamber were alive with pain. The circle's leader screamed in fury, his eyes wide with disbelief. "No. It's not possible." But it was too late. The heart had been awakened. And with it, the ancient entity that had been trapped for centuries had been set free. End of episode 16.